Hey guys, it's Aman
and Christina
from Our Rich Journey. On today's video, we want to share an experience with you guys because recently our family had kind of a medical emergency here in Portugal that required our daughter to spend 2 days in the hospital. Now, everything is okay, things worked out just fine, but we wanted to take this time to share our experience using the medical services here in Portugal. And so on today's video, we want to talk about how much it cost. We want to talk about the services that were provided, our overall experience, the type of healthcare that is available here in Portugal, the health insurance that we have ourselves. We're going to talk about a lot of different things.
But first, if you are new to our channel is all about making money, saving money, and investing money on the road to financial independence. Aman and I pursued financial independence for 8 years. We reached financial independence, quit our federal government jobs, and we retired here in Portugal. So if you are interested in learning more about making, saving, and investing money, or about life here in Portugal, make sure you subscribe to our channel and follow us on Instagram. So let's get into the healthcare system here in Portugal, and we're gonna talk about our most recent experience. But before we do that, we wanna give you a sort of overview of how the healthcare system works here in Portugal. And this healthcare system here is actually divided into 3 different categories. The first one is private healthcare, second is public healthcare, and the third one is a quasi-government form of healthcare, which is mainly reserved for military and public servants here in Portugal. So for us, as part of our visa application, we had to have private insurance. So we have private insurance. But once you get here and once you qualify as a resident here in Portugal, you are eligible for the public health care here. Now, public health care isn't automatic. You actually have to fill out paperwork and go through the right process in order to get into their system. We go into all that detail in our Moving to Portugal course. So if you want to learn more about that, we'll leave a link for the course below. But just know in general, if you move here, you'll generally have private and public health care available to you.
So if you guys have been watching our channel, you know that we are just in love with Portugal. In fact, we did a video on the top 10 reasons why we chose Portugal. And one of those reasons was the healthcare system. Now, you know, when Christina and I were thinking of places to retire, we could have retired anywhere in the world. In fact, we've lived in Spain, we've lived in Japan, we've lived in different parts of the United States. But Portugal continued to rank at the top of our list. And one of those reasons was because of the healthcare system, the quality of healthcare and the accessibility of the healthcare. You see, it's one thing to live in a place and it be a wonderful place, but if it doesn't have the healthcare in place to support you when you need it the most, things could go awry very quickly. So for us, when we were doing our research, we found that healthcare in Portugal was ranked so high. In fact, it's 12th in the world. For comparison purposes, the US is ranked 36th and Canada is ranked 30th.
But not only that, Portugal's healthcare costs are way more affordable than the costs in the United States. And I'll give you an example. For us, a family of 4, for private health insurance here in Portugal, we are only paying about $1,500 a year for that private health insurance.
And we have had to use our private health insurance on several occasions. I went in for a routine colonoscopy and my colonoscopy was completely covered by my health insurance. I only had to pay a $3 fee at the hospital. That is an amazing cost. I don't know how much a colonoscopy would cost in the US, but I'm sure it wouldn't cost $3.
So to drive home the point, the Portugal healthcare system is ranked higher than the United States, and it's also a lot more affordable. But what we want to really talk about is this most recent visit that we had, because in this recent visit, we used the public healthcare system because we were directed to the public healthcare system by our private provider. So I'm gonna get into how we were transferred to the public system in more detail as I really explain what was going on and how that happened. But the last point that I wanna make about the healthcare system in general with Portugal is that if you live in the bigger cities, if you live in Lisbon or Porto or even some areas in the Algarve, you're gonna find more private hospitals that are available. But if you go out to more rural towns, those private hospitals are a little bit further away. But the great thing about Portugal is that it's a really compact country, so it's easy to navigate from one place to the other.
And there's actually one last point that we want to clarify, because I'm sure we'll get this question. What's the quality of service like between the public and the private system? Both systems are actually equivalent. I know there's usually this association because something is private, the quality must be better, and if it's public, the quality isn't as great. Well, that's not the case here in Portugal. Both systems are equal.
So let's get into our most recent experience with the public and private hospital here in Portugal. So a couple of weeks ago on a Sunday night, Sanoa was not feeling well, and so we decided to take her to the emergency room with our private hospital, with our private insurance. So I'm going to talk about that experience a little bit. Because of everything that's going on, before we even got to go to the admin section of the hospital, we had to get our temperatures checked to make sure that we didn't have a fever. We were cleared from that immediately, and then we went to admin, where we gave them our insurance information and also explained how Sanoa was feeling. We then moved over to the waiting room, where we waited less than 5 minutes in order to get to the triage section, where they took, again, vitals, blood pressure, things like that. And it was less than another 5 minutes before we saw a doctor.
So basically, we got to see a doctor very fast. And I mean, usually when you go into an emergency room, they usually prioritize who they see first, the people with the most urgent issues. And even though Sanoa's issue was urgent, it wasn't dire, and yet she was still able to see a doctor within 10 minutes.
Now, this is in vast contrast to how our experience has been in the United States. If we go to even an emergency room in the United States, the wait time can be very long, especially with the symptoms that Sanoa had. Another difference is when you go into the hospitals here in Portugal, you're not filling out tons and tons of paperwork before you get to see a doctor. The only thing that we had to do was give them our insurance card number, and then we moved on to wait for triage. We weren't filling out tons of paperwork. We weren't giving them any other additional information. We just gave them our policy card number, and that was it. So that was our experience with the ER. There was no paperwork, but when we actually got to speak to the doctor, they did blood tests, and I just want to mention also that there was no communication barriers with the doctor. The doctor spoke fluent English. We are working on our Portuguese, and we are trying so hard. We could probably scramble enough together in order to understand the doctor speaking in Portuguese, but the doctor spoke to us in fluent English, so there was no communication barriers.
And I know this is a big concern for a lot of people when they come to a foreign country, is in an emergency situation, will you be able to communicate? And we've been to the hospital several times here in Portugal, and communication has never been a problem.
So back to our experience. Our doctor suggested that Sanoa does a blood draw and they run some tests. And what's nice about the hospital is that they ran the tests in-house. So it took about 45 minutes to get the results. And once we got the results, our doctor suggested that we transfer Sanoa over to a children's hospital in order to be monitored. But the nearest children's hospital was a public hospital. So that's how we went from the private hospital over to the public hospital.
Now, this transition from the private hospital to the public hospital went smoothly because we are registered in the public system here in Portugal.
So the public hospital was only a 4-minute drive from our private hospital. So when we got there, the whole process was the same. We had to get our temperatures checked to make sure we didn't have a fever. That cleared, and we again went straight to the admin office, where we brought the paperwork from the previous hospital and the blood tests and the results from that. And we explained the situation. We went to triage. Within a couple of minutes, we saw actually several doctors. Now, it wasn't because of Sanoa's situation, but in this particular public healthcare system, there were several doctors working the ER system at the same time, and so they all came in to see Sanoa.
So after seeing several doctors, and I mean, it wasn't like we were seeing several doctors because they couldn't figure out the situation. They actually knew right away what was wrong with Sanoa based off of just talking to her and the blood work. The solution was already in place. It wasn't about the solution, it was about just monitoring Sanoa over the next couple of days based off of the treatment that they were going to give her. So Christina was actually the person that stayed with Sanoa in the hospital over those several days. I went home with Malia and We hung out.
So like Aman said, I spent 2 nights in the hospital with Sanoa. It was actually a very large hospital, and we had our own room assigned to us. So Sanoa had her hospital bed. They had a bed next to her that I slept in, and the whole process was actually very smooth. We had many doctors coming in just to really check on Sanoa's vitals, to see if she had any symptoms that she was experiencing, any ongoing symptoms, and we really felt very well taken care of. They fed us the meals. They brought in meals for me. They brought in meals, of course, for Sanoa. They were very edible. I mean, it's hospital food, but I mean, the care that they gave to us over those 2 days was exceptional. The doctors, no communication barriers at the public hospital either. They were constantly speaking fluent English around us, the doctors, the nurses. Whenever I had any questions, they were able to respond immediately to the questions that I had. Now, one thing I do want to say is just how appreciative and grateful we are for the services that we had and for them helping us with Sanoa. I mean, the doctors, the nurses, the admin at these hospitals, both public and private, were so thoughtful, so caring, and they were so in tune with the needs that we had and how to treat Sanoa, and we're just so appreciative for that.
And I want to double that sentiment and just thank everyone so much, because it can be very scary for your child to go to a hospital. And you know, for me being at home, when Christina called me and she told me about the experiences they were having, that everyone was so wonderful to them, you know, I just have to thank everyone, especially in the healthcare industry right now, because you guys are going through a lot right now. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
So one last thing we want to talk about is our checkout procedure, and then we also want to talk about the costs from the 2 nights in the hospital, all the blood tests, the ultrasounds, and then the medications after that, because we were referred from our private healthcare provider to the public healthcare provider. So on the last day of checkout, the doctor came in to talk to us. She gave a set of prescriptions that Sanoa needed to take after we checked out of the hospital, and that was it. She said, "You're free to go." And I said, "Okay, well, we have to go to admin first, right? And check out with them, and do we have to pay? How does the process for payment work?" And she said, "No, you just leave. You can just walk out. You know, make sure you say goodbye to the nurses. They really liked Sanoa, but that's it. You could just leave."
And see, this was something that when we've gone to the doctor here in Europe, and the same thing happened to us in Spain, when they tell you can just leave, I guess coming from America, you feel like, shouldn't I be paying something for this? Because that's it here. The healthcare system, the way it works here, you don't have to pay as you're leaving. You just leave. And there's not this cloud over your head that you're gonna get some tremendous $100,000 bill in the mail. That's it. The service has been provided, they've helped you, and you can go on your way. So I know when Christina was leaving the hospital, she was like, that's it. Are you sure I don't have to pay anything?
So even though we were referred from our private hospital, because we went to the public healthcare system, because we were in this system, they registered us as being eligible for that public healthcare, and everything from that hospital was completely free. So all of that treatment that we had with the overnight stays, with all the tests they run, with the medication, $0, €0. It was completely free.
Now, I know in the comments section, we're gonna get a bunch of comments about taxes, about is it really free, all of these different things. And as residents here in Portugal, we pay taxes. So it's not completely free. These services are paid for by the taxes that the residents here in Portugal pay. So that is our experience, our overnight stay experience in a hospital. We love sharing this information with you because we know that a lot of you are considering Portugal as a country to move to retire to, and we just want to share our experience. We are so grateful to be here in Portugal. We have been welcomed with open arms in every community we've gone to, and it's so nice to be able to go to the hospital and have that exact same experience. So we hope that you guys have liked this video, and as usual, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and join the journey.